A federal trial got underway earlier today for a local doctor who federal prosecutors have labeled a medical terrorist, and they've said that in court. Anesthesiologist Raynaldo Ortiz is accused of putting patients at risk by injecting heart-stopping drugs into their IV bags. Andrea Lucia and the I-team have been on this story from the very beginning. Andrea, the doctor finally getting his day in court. It's been a while coming.
Absolutely. Dr. Ortiz has been behind bars for about a year and a half, awaiting trial and maintaining his innocence. In opening statements today, a federal prosecutor told jurors they will see how Ortiz committed his crimes in plain sight. But a defense attorney argued the government here is only seeing what it wants to see. It was August of 2022. A mostly empty parking lot surrounded the Baylor Scott & White Surgicare Center in North Dallas. The facility, which handles outpatient procedures, was forced to close suddenly after a string of unexplained emergencies. Over the course of that summer, 10 patients had been rushed to nearby emergency rooms after problems during their procedures.
To have this happen is stunning. What's more stunning is to have it happen so many times.
Attorney Bruce Neckler told us one of those emergencies involved his client, an otherwise healthy 18-year-old who underwent sinus surgery.
You're unconscious in the middle of a surgical procedure, and I can't think of any other situation where you put your trust more in someone.
All of the patients survived, but a doctor who worked at the center did not.
The most agonizing thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
John Kaspar watched his wife of 30 years suffer a heart attack at home in June of that year. Dr. Melanie Kaspar had taken an IV bag home from work to rehydrate after being sick.
I grappled with the fact that she had had a heart attack because she was a very healthy woman, could sit on her bicycle trainer for hours and not have any issues.
Test results show both she and the 18-year-old were poisoned with a heart-stopping drug, bupivacaine. Investigators say they linked the tainted IV bags to an anesthesiologist who worked at the center, Raynaldo Ortiz. Dr. Ortiz was already under investigation by the facility for a problem in one of his surgeries. Investigators say Ortiz was angry over the potential loss of his job, which would have been financially devastating. Ortiz allegedly told the fellow doctor he felt he was being crucified. The mysterious cardiac emergencies started a few days later.
Whether it's revenge or if he's trying to cover up his own inabilities, it's hard to even comprehend that somebody can do things like this.
Surveillance video showed Dr. Ortiz on multiple occasions stocking the cabinet outside OR rooms with single IV bags for anyone to grab during surgery. Medical workers told investigators that was a job typically handled by nurses, not doctors, and not one bag at a time. Prosecutors say those instances coincided with the patient emergencies, but none of them happened during Ortiz's own surgeries. In one case, the nurse told investigators when she retrieved an IV bag for Ortiz, he vehemently refused it and said he would get his own bag. Ortiz has denied all of the allegations. His attorneys say the evidence against him is made up of suspicious coincidences.
I can't remember another case involving an anesthesiologist like this.
John Helms is a former federal prosecutor who has read the complaint against Ortiz.
He seemed to want other anesthesiologists to have complications with their surgeries, I guess to make himself look better. So that's something I've never heard before.
Court documents show 7 doctors and 4 patients involved in those surgeries could take the stand. Helms says the government likely wants first-hand accounts from inside the OR and the impacts felt afterwards.
I think you're going to have a lot of doctors coming in and saying this would never have happened. These patients, their hearts started racing or they had this physical reaction to something and there was nothing in the surgery that would have caused that.
Ortiz is facing 10 federal charges related to the tampering of IV bags, which carry a sentence of up to life in prison. He's pleaded not guilty, and Helms says while the defense has a difficult job ahead, the government's evidence is largely circumstantial.
I don't know that at the end of the day there's going to really be an issue about whether the bags were contaminated. I think it's going to be, can they prove that it was
last 18 months, both times at the should be Lengthy. The next 3 weeks have been set aside for this trial.
Yeah, Andrea, two things real quick. Apologies, a little late on the mic when we brought it up, so we missed the first few things you talked about. But let's hone in on the fact this is a federal trial that's being prosecuted, and it's not being prosecuted by local district attorneys, but it's the U.S. Attorney General's office. What's the significance of that?
I mean, well, it speaks to how seriously the federal government views these alleged crimes. The rules will be a little bit different in federal court. We saw the judge today take a much more prominent role in jury selection. And if Ortiz is convicted, it will be the judge, not the jury, who will determine his sentence. And the punishment in federal cases do tend to be harsher. For me as a reporter, it means a much more heightened security. We are not allowed to take cameras, phones, laptops, even a smartwatch into court with us.
And that makes your presence there for us during this trial even that much more important. Andrea, thank you so much.